Today I will feature my latest pet project, and that is my Vermin control deck. In essence, this is a blue-black discard deck with an interesting take on it. Instead of the standard disinformation campaign package, I'm using things like the Imp, Vicious Rumor, and Mr. Rat. Now sadly this is a work in progress, and as such I don't have all the cards I want quite yet. For example, I only have 2 rats. For some reason I just can't seem to pull more, and at the moment I'm using my wild cards on staples, and Mr. Rat is certainly no staple, even though I like him. Moving on, there's some more draw power, there is some more discard. Of course I make room for a few copies of the Plague Crafter. This card is amazing at dealing with planeswalkers and dealing with annoying hexproof creatures. Moving on, we have some more draw power, a bit more spot removal, and of course 3 copies of Ritual of Soth to deal with token spam, merfolk spam, or anything really spammy. Now if I were to play this deck in a best of 3, obviously this is a card that is quite easy to sideboard out against control deck and bring in more counter spells or more draw power, whatever you need. Planeswalkers, we have 2 copies of Karn, obviously for the draw power, but the artifact can help from time to time, because I'm also running 2 copies of Tesseract, and his second ability is really easy to get going when you have Karn helping out with tokens. Of course, Tesseract's first ability is really good at dragging out the game. Say they have a Doom Whisperer, well here's a token you have to go through every single turn until eventually you can draw a answer for the Doom Whisperer. And his ultimate is of course good for finishing the game if it goes that long. Although I not really had a chance to play it, people tend to forfeit once you start taking their stuff. Speaking of taking their stuff, I have 4 copies of the Elders Reborn. This card, once it gets going, is really good. And once you reach the 3rd stage of the saga, it is quite easy to go and grab whatever you need really. You tend to kill everything on the board anyway, so you can quite easily get one of their planeswalkers, get an angel, whatever you need really. Maybe 4 copies is a bit much and you could potentially go down to 3. Now I did say this is a work in progress, and this guy is one that I tried out. It didn't work out at all. It's too expensive, too easy to remove, and a few times that I did manage to cast him, the game was over anyway. So this is one of the cards I'm gonna take out, and I'm probably gonna replace him with 2 more rats, once I finally manage to pull some. Finally we have the lands, nothing special here, few copies of Drowned Catacomb and a single Watery Grave, just because I don't have more yet. I am working on getting more lands, but for now, this is what I have to make do. Anyway, let's go and jump into some gameplay and see what we can do with the rats. Now one thing that I did notice when I played this deck is quite a lot of people actually quits before the game gets going. They just don't seem to like the discard aspect of the deck at all. I had more people quit from this deck than I had people quit when I started playing Merfolk, which is saying something I guess. Anyway, enjoy the clips and I catch you next time. This is Project signing out. Oh, by the way, in this first game I did get disconnected during my first turn, and when I relaunched the game it did so in a new client and forgot to close the first client, so the audio might be a bit off here and there. I'm also doing the voiceover post game because I did forget to actually do it during the game when I played it. Anyway, the first turn, what we did miss was he did shock my first imp, but luckily enough we have another, and we also have a rat, forcing him to discard another card. Now we can see that he's blue-red, so he might be a Phoenix player, or he might be something more janky, or he might be wizards. Those are usually the cards that are being played in a blue-red combination. Now in this case I did choose to actually pay life for the Catacomb, even though it wasn't really necessary, because I actually can't do anything with it, but I wanted to threaten that I might have something blue that I can use on my next turn, or on his turn rather. For example, I could threaten that I have a dive down or maybe spell pierce by leaving open a blue. And to be honest, life doesn't matter too much for this deck because you either die really early or you manage to live long enough to stabilize the board. Now he's actually playing the budget version of the Phoenix decks, meaning he doesn't have Phoenixes quite yet and is using the Goblin instead as a win condition. Now here he's considering if he should remove it or not. It is going to cost him another card. He ends up actually giving up a land, but at this point it doesn't really matter too much. Now I choose to hardcast a Gem's Insight on my own turn, basically because he might have counter spells and I didn't want to risk actually being countered when I'm so low on cards. Luckily he didn't have it, and now I can start getting the board advantage because of the Chemistry Insight. I start with removing his Goblin. He's now down to 5 cards, and if I remember correctly, he's gonna hardcast a Banefire here. Yeah, there it is. Basically because he knows next turn he's gonna be forced to discard it anyway, so he might as well do some damage to me. Now when Karn comes down and you don't have any cards in your hand, the game is usually very far out of your reach. Obviously he's not gonna give me the dog, but he doesn't know that I have even more removal in my hand. Now he does a mistake there of actually playing the land. It is much better to hold the land and at least pretend to bluff that he might have something. Now of course the game is out of control at this point, with me having a lot of draw power. I drew another Gem's Insight, I have one in the graveyard. He got a shot of course, but at this point it doesn't really matter. Now depending on what kind of player you are here, you might actually quit the game right here because you should realize the game is over, or you might start roping people as well. I've seen that happen too. Now here I draw another Gem's Insight into an Insight, and if I remember correctly I'm gonna draw a 4th copy as well. The game is truly over here, and there I also drew another copy of the Elders Reborn. Obviously he's gonna stay a bit longer just trying to do something, but usually I tap out at this point because I usually realize the game is beyond over. And there is the 4th Gem's Insight. I can now draw a lot of cards, to say the least. Now obviously if you do have some way to come back you should stick out, but usually at this point there is not much hope. The Elders Reborn is gonna grab another one of his things, and I is gonna summon an Imp because why not? I don't really need to care about any kind of threat at this point. I'm trying to think right now what he could actually have. He could have a Star Extinction, but even if he were to cast a Star Extinction, I would just be able to spam even more cards thanks to Gem's Insight and draw even more threat. So it wouldn't actually matter either. Now here I go and grab my dog because why not? I just want to finish the game really quickly, and on my next turn I'm gonna be able to grab that Goblin with the Elders Reborn from his graveyard. Now of course the Elders Reborn can also target your own graveyard, so in case one of your Planeswalkers do die, you can always bring them back later. Anyway, he's gonna try to hold something. I'm gonna cast in Gem's Insight and just draw even more card. There's the Thoughtseize, just to... not Thoughtseize, Thought Erasure, just to make matters worse. And I'm gonna go and grab one of his goblins here, I do believe. And he's gonna tap out. It was way overdue. I kind of feel bad for him. Playing against this card is kind of painful. Now moving on to the second game. The first hand, well, that one was terrible. The second hand, it's a lot of land and expensive spells, but I decided to keep it anyway. Sadly, I need a second black in order for Ritual of Soth to actually work. Now here he actually plays a Llanowarn on turn 2, and it is a red green, which makes me think either dragons or dinosaurs. And there's another elf, just to make matters worse, and accelerate him to 5 mana on turn 4. Potentially 6 as well. And I was really worried here, because if he did have a Carnage Tyrant here, the game would probably be very hard to come back from. Now I did choose to discard a land, and the top of the deck was actually one of his bigger dinosaurs that he really needed. And it does seem like he's actually mana flowing quite a bit. Now I myself, I finally drew the black source that I needed, and what I'm considering doing here is using a Ritual of Soth. But then I realized that the dino on the board, is that even a dino? It might be a human on the board, will not actually die from the Ritual of Soth. So instead I'm considering passing the turn. I could also play an imp, but the red thing in the middle is not a legendary creature, so I would have to pay full cost for the Price of Fame. Now he does choose to play that enchantment, and that enchantment is real annoying because it's a really good clock. You can just keep spamming creatures and remove all your opponent's stuff or go for face. Now luckily he didn't have anything else, and I'm actually gonna use Price of Fame here and reveal that I do have another Eldest Reborn on top of the deck. This is really good for me, and what I'm gonna do here is cast Ritual of Soth, which means that the next turn, if he chooses to summon one big creature, I can just remove it with Eldest Reborn. And again, he did the mistake here of actually playing the land. He should have held the land to at least threaten something. Now instead what happens is I'm getting control of the board, and with Eldest Reborn I'm eventually going to be able to start taking his dinos from him or taking back my dogs. Now here he gets another dinosaur, but it doesn't really matter. I have an Eldest Reborn, so I will get rid of that one as well, and I have a dog for third dino. Now he could still win the game here with the enchantment. He just needs to summon 2 more big dinosaurs and I will actually die. Now once again he does choose to actually play the land rather than hold it, which I believe is a big mistake. Now here I'm gonna go and grab his dino, and at this point the game should be close to over. Now he could still potentially win if he does draw 2 big dinos in a row. He could play dino, deal 4 damage in my face, and then play dino next turn and kill me off with that. And I would not have enough reach to actually kill him. Luckily enough, he draws another land. I take another one of his dinosaur, and I do summon the weird Spectre for once. But as we can see, the Spectre doesn't matter at all. The Sun Avatar triggers, I don't have any dinos, so it doesn't really matter, and he chooses to forfeit. But that game got really close. Like if he actually had drawn those 2 dinos, I would probably have lost. Alright, let's move on to the third game. I can't remember what happened in this one at all. Actually, I think I can, no? No, I don't know what happened in this game at all anymore. Oh, right, now I do. It is white-red. So I start with an imp on turn 1, which is quite good, because the imp is really annoying. Like, do you want to remove the imp on turn 1 and forfeit your turn 1 or 2? Or do you want to allow the other players to have the imp and actually check your hand? Now, obviously I have a Thought Erasure here as well, which is way better than sacrificing my imp, and I see he's playing some weird triple color kinda controlish deck. Now sadly Tesseract has to go to the graveyard because I really do need lands. I already have 2 Eldest Reborn in hand and I really need mana to cast them. Alright, he actually only gets to play the life gain, and now I can see his entire hand, and I will start to summon a rat. The rat here is of course really good, forcing me to discard more cards. Now I do make a mistake here actually. Summoning the rat was not actually the best idea. What I should have done here is sacrificing the imp and get rid of his blue card, because the blue card allows him to take control of one of my creature, and what he should have done was use the blue card, take control of my imp, sacrifice my imp so he can have a look at my hand. Sadly, he actually doesn't do that, and he does something else instead. Oh, he actually passes the turn. Like right there, he could just grab my imp and use it against me. Now instead I get to use my imp and I get to take away his control card. He also has a secondary wreckage, but that is not really relevant to this deck. Now realizing his mistake and the board control that I have, he does choose to forfeit the game. Now maybe if he had played it differently and taken my imp, the game would have been a lot different, but we will never know. Now I will show another game right here, but I won't be doing any commentating, because right now my nose is acting up and it's making it extremely difficult to talk for a long period of time. I have no idea what's up with it. It will probably be better in the morning. But anyway, I catch you next time. This is Project signing out. Again.